So, let's get this started. I'm going to clear some room here. You know what, we'll put all the important things in that. And we'll also keep this one over here. I just have regular hardware right there, and I've got some other screws over here that we'll use for the motors. I like to use titanium screws for the motors, but you know, aluminum parts for everything else. Just helps with them extra stripping. So we'll put all the important components in there. Basically everything in there. Get over there. Alright. Okay, so assembling the frame. First you shuffle it. Then what you do is we're going to start out just with these the bottom plate and the mid plate. You can put that however you want, really doesn't matter, because we're going to choose the orientation in a bit. Now in the kit there are M35, sorry, 3x35, that's for a double stack. I'm going to use M320s, that's for a single stack. So we're going to put all of the M35 screws, just going to call them 35, in these holes right here. And then we're going to go ahead and use the nylon nuts just to kind of secure those screws. So we're going to be putting another nut on here, but we can just do one for now. Two kind of just locks it down and keeps it in place. We want to put these about halfway down, maybe a little bit more. And then we are going to attach the arms. Now, one mistake I always make when I'm making this frame, strongly suggest you guys double check, is take one of your motors and one of your arms, and if it's a 2-screw arm, line up the way that it attaches to the frame. Some holes are 16 and some holes are 19. So these holes right here are 16 millimeters distance, so make sure you match the inner ones the right way with how the wires go down the frame, or else you're going to have something wonky where like the wire is like, I don't know, sticking out to the side and it's going to look super derpy. Nobody wants that. So we're going to, yeah, so that's the right way. That's up, I guess. So I'm going to make sure the mid plate is on top, and we're just going to slide the arms in. Should be fairly snug, and we can just leave it kind of like teetering right there. That's totally fine. And we can just put another one in. Now these always go in a pattern, so you know, if you think of this as going down, pointing that way, you basically you can line it up this way, then just rotate it. The reason why they go in that pattern is because when they lock up for the 4 bumpers, it's set up to where the holes kind of go to each other and it's in line with the motors. If you don't have that kind of rotating pattern, you won't be able to do the bumpers the correct way. Alright, so now you can see when they're in the right, when the arms are attached like that, they're swiveling right now because they're not locked in, but they're going to line up right there, so they're going to actually press against each other on impacts. And that fork design, you're getting that contact on both sides of that arm at whichever standoff you do, 30.5 or 16 by 20 millimeters. And then you're also getting that 45 millimeter standoff. So we're going to go ahead and put the 12 millimeter screws in there. Now I like to put them in with the head on top and the nut on the bottom. Just kind of like it basically lets the wires run a little bit flatter instead of having to go over the nut right there. because like you're gonna have minimal prop clearance, and you know, you don't have to do them tight right now. It's just enough so that they hold on. So we're going to go ahead and lock down the other screw. Oops. All right, there we go. So you can tell, like, if you guys were to ever break an arm, you know, you don't have to ever remove the flight controller. You just kind of like slide the arm in there, and you know, no matter what flight controller you have or stack type you have, you won't have to remove it. Now we can kind of hand tighten these nuts right here and the screws right now, and then once we get the other nut on there, we can actually use pliers to hold the nut, and then just use the Allen wrench on the bottom. All right. So let's add these motors, and thank goodness I did it the right way. All right, I still had my doubts even when I lined it up. All right, so because it's 4mm carbon, you guys can use any 6mm screws. You just want at least, you know, 2mm. I forgot what the ratio is, but you want 2mm for motor screws. You know, like just like holding it in there. Aluminum's totally fine. I like to use titanium. Sure, it's like slightly heavier, but on a thing like a motor that you might change, like it's just a hassle to actually have to like saw open the screw, and like titanium, it like holds up a little bit better. However, the nice thing with this frame is that it has these motor guards, so you're not really going to damage the motor belt or the screws on impacts. So because I'm going for a super slim build, like a one-stack build, I am only going to have 2 nuts on the bottom there for spacers. So basically I've taken this TPU mount and just trimmed it a bit on the sides. I'll probably trim this one a little bit more, but that's the initial start, and that's how much I've trimmed. This never really takes an impact, so it's not like it needs to have a ton of support there. Something like that. Let's see if that works. Might have to trim a slight amount more. It could be pressed down to it, maybe. Yeah. The thing is, if you like trim this, you don't want to go too far, because this cable is like now like going right up against the carbon fiber. It's never takes an impact, so you don't have to worry about it snapping, but you know, you just don't want to have it be too much, have too much stress there. So it's gonna wrap right around like that. So I think a good idea before we go any further is to go ahead and attach it to this Unify. So you know, Unify comes with either RPSMA or SMA. So we're just going to go ahead and take it off there. You don't even need to re-shrink wrap this when you do this. I'm going to show you guys a good, like a nifty little way to kind of keep it secured. So we're just taking off that little bit of, what do you call it, shrink wrap there, and you can just like pop it off. See, I kind of like just use a thing, and there we go. Just came right off. I got really scared. I thought I pulled off the actual thing, but okay. Yeah, it's still good. Nice. Okay, so basically just pull that thing off. You know, you have just the hole right there. And there's the other hole. So, just going to put it on, make sure it snaps, get all this stupid glue out of the way. I'm going to move this circuit board because I know I'm going to drop something on it. Alright, so gonna just, should get a nice little click in there. There it goes, click, and like see now it'll like pivot from there, which is like now you know it's locked in. But you know, like kind of leaving it just like that, there's a chance it might come undone. So we're gonna, you know, you could put like black hot glue on it and like the same type of stuff that's on there and like make it super, you know, like gooey. But the thing is, this thing is gonna get really hot, so it's gonna heat it up anyway. So my suggestion is, instead of having it go straight out like that, we're going to secure it like this. So any type of impact has the stress point on this corner, not necessarily on the connector. So what we're going to do is we're going to first secure it. There we go. It's like we were never even there. Made this one too long. I'm a fool. Okay. There we go. Okay, so we got that tape on. Now we're gonna overdo it a bit with the tape, but listen, it's worth it. The goal in doing this is to secure the cable as much as possible. There we go. All right. So there's our VTX. And this guy is going to essentially lay on top of the flight controller. Something like that. So, got our VTX done. Now we're ready to put the flight controller in. Now, the Crossfire Micro is going to sit underneath the flight controller. However, we're not going to feed the antenna through there or anything like that. We're just going to wrap it around the side because we might have to exchange the module receiver later by choice or by, you know, like if it malfunctions. So it's just good to not feed anything anywhere that you don't want to. So we are going to go ahead and put some little vibration dampener O-rings on here. Now it does, and get the micro out of there for the time being. Now it doesn't really matter. Oh my god, they're bouncy. It doesn't, like, it's you're only running 8.8, right? So vibration dampening, it's not going to really do a whole lot. The only reason why I'm putting it on there is just for an extra little space up with the TPU. It gets the flight controller up a fair amount by snipping the TPU on the sides, but you know, just to kind of like get it the last little bit so it's not putting tension on the current sensor underneath, or you know, it's just nice to have those dampener things there. So I'm gonna put it right there. Make sure the VTX cable is not getting pinched. We're going to just go ahead and snip the motor wires. And after we snip the motor wires, we are going to go ahead and solder. Now that all the motor wires are snipped and whatnot, we're going to go ahead and tin the pads as well as the motor wires and also the power wires. We're not going to connect the motor wires yet because we're just going to actually connect and power it via XT60 first, just to make sure everything's going well. I already tested it via USB. So the 5-volt reg is working. I just want to make sure that the actual board is working before we connect the motors. So let's go ahead and solder stuff up. Let's go ahead and tin these as well. Alright, sorry about that, guys. I had to stop with the motor wires because I ran out of Scotch. But this is great stuff. I highly recommend it. Duty free that, because it's expensive everywhere else wise, but it's wonderful stuff. Laphroaig. Bam. Sponsor me at Quads. Bam. Playing with fire and you get burnt. Ah! You get burnt really bad. Ow! There you go. Okay. Now, best way to do the power wires I found is right in there like that. And then a zip tie around. So we want the the plug to be like right about there. It's always good to leave a little bit of room. Never know what will happen. It's best just to hold the iron on the wire and take the solder and actually just push the solder on there. Don't try and push the iron on the wire, won't work. Just push the solder on the iron. I think I want to do these. There we go. Nice. It's just going to hold right down there and has a good amount of slack too. Okay, so next we're going to actually try it. Let's see. Looks good to me. Next we're going to attach the motor wires to the actual pads. Bam! Time warp. So I decided to call it a night last night, a little bit early, and for a few reasons. Just the GoPro kept overheating, but mainly we're going to get a lot better light in the daytime, and hopefully my soldering will be much more accurate. Alright, so let's continue through. I always test after every connection just to make sure that everything's working properly. Alright, so here we go. Nice. Okay, cool. And let's power this guy up. So you can see that we mounted the flight controller in this orientation, which is basically right side up with the arrow facing the right way. Fortunately, USB is in the front, so it makes it a bit difficult to get to it when you have the whole thing assembled. If you set up, your PIDs and everything through OSD, you really don't need to ever, plug in USB. And honestly, where else were they going to put it on the board? And the earlier models have it under here, but I'm kind of glad they didn't put it under there so that we can actually have the VTX under there. So what we're going to do is we're going to, after we solder these guys, we're going to make it to where the camera is, there'll be standoffs here, and we can put one thing right there like that and have it be over, and then we're just going to basically rotate it like that and clamp it on right there, and it's going to sit basically right along like that. I'm going to actually trim this a bit too. It's totally okay to trim these. You're not really going to mess up the structural support of them. The layering is pretty nice on it, so that you still have a good amount of padding on it. So something like that. There we go. Oh my god, almost hit me in the face. Nothing's touching. It's a tight fit. And then we'll run the wires right up there. Alright, perfect. And no prop touching. Great. Very close though. When I do this, when I solder this up first, I'm going to leave the OSD wires in just because I haven't actually turned off the OSD for the camera. But you know, I'm going to go ahead and take out this blue wire. There we go. The camera's going to fit basically right around there. Oops. We just have to make sure that the big thing about this is that when you fit the camera in there, you want to make sure that the wires don't get pinched. So you kind of want them up like that, and you'd put them around this guy right over here, and then kind of swivel the camera back and then put them around that guy right there, and then you'd want the wires coming up. So I'm going to use almost all of the wire that it comes with, just so I have the you know, a little bit of play or freedom when I take it off the harness. Let's go ahead and tin the pads. This board is great. The only thing is that the solder pads are very tiny, so you want to be very careful when you're soldering those guys up. And those wires can go right there. Okay. So with these guys you gotta be careful because they are not colored, but just do them one at a time and you're fine. So ground. So it should be ground 5-volt S-bus. Just checking those wires aren't touching anything. Looks pretty good. Looks good to me. Alright, here we go. There it is. Red light. Yeah. That's how we do it. Okay. Again, we're going to do the camera. Already stripped the wires, you just need to tin them. Alright, so we're going to be doing video in wire right here. There we go, much better. Next is ground. Okay, so you can see those look nice. Alright, so now we're going to do the VTX. So we're going to snip this. And we'll do something like that. So let's go and do video out first. Alright. Nice. Cool. So now this wire is a bit more difficult just because it's got, we have to put the two positives together on the same pad. There we go. Yeah, something like that. And then wait a little bit more, and then we can go ahead and put this guy on. I'm going to put a little bit more solder on the wire. There we go. That's the connection I wanted. So, yeah. You can see none of the wires are touching. Fairly nicely across right there. Alright, so let's go ahead and fire it up and see if it works. And I'm going to leave the smart audio cable disconnected. Okay, so let's go ahead and scan for a channel. Sync. Alright, good. We've got video signal 5860. And bam! Got every conceivable possible OSD that we'd want. Alright, so we just attached the smart audios. We've got pretty much all the solder joints covered. The only thing left to do now, you know, you could do the buzzer if you really wanted to, or you know, if you can get D-Shot working with this board, that's awesome too, because then you can just use the ESCs to beep. But lastly, let's go ahead and put the top on, and get this antenna figured out. So let's see, so we're going to go and put some more spacers on the board there. You can go ahead and turn off the soldering iron. Don't need that anymore. Just going to be using that. So you go ahead and tighten these guys down. Now with these types of spacers, if you're going to use the little O-rings, I find that you want to kind of use your nail to push them in as you tighten this down, or else the things are just going to go right through it. We also need to run the zip tie through the back, which I probably should have done first, but it's alright. You can slide it in and kind of loop it around. I'm trying to go around both of these. Alright, so we're just going to take the antenna out slightly of there so we can just get to this little angle a little bit better. And this guy can go right through here. Something like that. Now let's go ahead and feed this through here. We'll leave the crossfire out for binding purposes. So let's see, now we want to just go and measure up our antenna length here. So I'm going to cut it right about there. That zip tie's gone forever. Then I'm going to go ahead and put on a wire cover here. There we go. We'll probably have to trim a bit of it, but it's going to look something like that. So here's this one. So let's go ahead and get this heat shrink on. And there's that. Okay, wonderful. So now we just want to use some zip ties to, I want to use like 3 or so around here, 2 on the back, 1 on the front, just so that keeps it really locked down. We'll do 2 on both sides. Really want them as tight as you can go, so you can kind of pinch them and roll the pliers over there, and then finally cut it. Rolling the pliers over there will just ensure that it's you kind of get the tightest notch in there possible. Alright, and one more. Okie dokie, cool. And that's not going anywhere. I've just went ahead and programmed the OSD off screen, and by programming it I mean I've completely removed it from the run cam, and then I'm going to just go ahead and remove the OSD wires from the harness. There we go. We'll go ahead and put the wires just like slightly under the board. Is when we put the camera in there, we just want to make sure that none of the wires are getting actually pinched. Okay. So easiest way to do it is you put this guy on first, and then you essentially just swing the door in. But when you swing, you want to make sure that nothing's touching, no wires in there are touching. Nothing's getting cut by the the USB, and lastly that your wires are not getting pinched underneath here, right in there. So all that is good. So let's swing, and we'll put that right there. Perfect. There we go. So we've got a nice clean little wire harness action going on in there. Alright, there we go. Alright, so we're just going to try and turn it on again, see if everything's good. Looks good. Alright, so then let's go ahead and put the VTX on. Let's go ahead and get this top plate on. Now when you put this on, the main thing that you want to check is that your VTX can slide around, because you don't want to be pinching anything on anything. So just make sure that you know, it's not pressing down on the board. Now we're going to plug it in, see how it looks. Alright, so last thing that we need to do is just we're going to tape up the motor wires, and we're going to go ahead and put one more zip tie on the power line right there. Super simple build. Here, we'll actually do the battery strap first. Okay, so I'm going to go in this way and feed it through a bit, and then I'll use these same little plier things to pull it through. So yeah, just put a little piece of Velcro on the actual battery strap. It'll help the battery stay in place. You know, for like this type of quad and whatnot, we want the battery to be centered kind of under the front of the battery. Sorry, under the front of the quad, like that. You don't really want it on the back because it might damage the antenna or VTX. So that little extra piece of Velcro really just helps kind of keep it in place. Alright, so let's go ahead and tape up our arms now. You can heat shrink them or whatever, but you know, it's just a pain if you ever have to switch arms. I usually try and put my motor wires on one side, like favoring one side. And what I mean by that is the motor wires are more so on the front of the arm over here, front of the arm this side rather than the back of the arm. That's because I have my props spinning the opposite direction, so just to kind of protect the motor wire. Alright, so it's good for that arm. Now I'm starting from the motor and then going back to the core of the frame, just because if I do have to do anything with this, like take a screw out, I don't want to have to take off the entire strand of tape if I don't have to. There we go. Alright, so we just have one more zip tie to do, which is the XT60 connector. It's just to make sure that when you attach it, you just basically put the XT60 as far close to the VTX antenna as you can. And then you want to loop around, have the connector on the side of the craft, not on the back, because you don't want any type of stress on the actual XT60 connector or battery. So we can kind of go ahead and push these all the way back over here like that, nice and snug. And we're going to have this guy kind of just affix right there. So it's on the side, so it's not going to get hurt by the battery. It's not going to hurt the battery. There it is. Okay. There we go. Right at 0. Alright, 251.7. So right around 250. It probably comes with the extra weight of the antenna cover or the the XT60. Also, I'm using titanium hardware in certain places too. But damn ultralight quad. Like, just gonna put some gym fan props on here. Zero it out. So with the gym fan props, it is right at 265. So it looks like that's like about 14 grams of props. So by itself, the R-line is 166 grams. So as soon as we get that on there, you're looking ready to fly is 430 about, with 34 gram motors. So this is a beast. This thing is gonna do light speed. It's gonna roll, flip insanely fast, but it's gonna also stop insanely fast because it's such a small package. It has such a tight center of gravity. There's not really that much angular mass going around. You know, you're not gonna hit the camera at all. Props go right past it for minimal clearance. You know, let's see. Yeah. So, not touching the VTX or any of the circuit boards. Glad you guys stuck around to the end, checking out this full build, and you know, definitely get your hands on a Snapdragon, and you know, feel the power of this guy, because this is for how small a package, it's incredibly durable. You know, you're not going to break a lot. There's not a lot of components, and it's incredibly fast too. So again, thanks so much for watching, guys. Be sure to subscribe to my channel for more flight videos, build videos, you know, quad vlogging stuff, anything like that. But I'll see you guys around, and see you on the field. Peace.